Well, welcome everyone, and welcome to Behind the Lens, telling civil rights stories through film. I'm Kim Callinan. I'm the executive director of March On, and I am absolutely thrilled to be here today and to have you joining us. This session marks the start of our countdown to the 2025 March On Festival, which is happening from September 16th to the 21st in Washington, D.C., and virtually across the country. This year's theme, March on Health, the Right to Be Well, and the film will be front and center as we explore the intersection of health, race, justice, and equity. Today, I am joined by two absolutely phenomenal storytellers. First, I have Opal Bennett. Opal is an Emmy-winning producer and director, and she is also the fabulous March On Filmmaker Competition director. She has birthed that baby from the beginning, and that competition takes place on Saturday morning, September 20th of the festival week. I also have with me today the amazing Christine Swanson. Christine is the acclaimed director who did The Clark Sisters and Albany Road, another film that we will be featuring at the March On Festival this year. That film will be featured on Friday, September 19th in the evening. Christine also happens to be one of our, she won the she was the category of emerging narrative shorts for her film FANNIE last year. She was a finalist in. So she wears two hats today. She is a filmmaker who has been a part of our competition, and she is also a filmmaker that we will feature in this year's festival. So Opal and Christine, thank you both for joining us today. We are truly honored to have you here today and as a part of the March On family. I'm going to start first with Christine. So Christine, I'd love to just hear a little bit from you on what drew you to filmmaking. What inspired you to use this medium to tell the stories of truth and justice, which is really what so many of your films are about?
Well, I'd like to say that I was a freshman at the University of Notre Dame, majoring in finance. I don't know why. I just thought that's something you study to get a job. And Spike Lee came to our campus to talk about Do the Right Thing. And I asked myself, like, people make movies for a living? I didn't really understand that growing up in Detroit, Michigan, that was a viable option as a career. So I promptly changed my major to filmmaking. I graduated from the University of Notre Dame and then applied and got into NYU Film School only because Spike Lee went there, that I applied there and I was admitted. And then Spike Lee was my directing teacher in my last year at film school. And what I learned from Spike Lee was the idea that we can tell stories about ourselves from our lens, from our point of view, and from our empathetic perspective that I personally found missing growing up watching a lot of content. So that's what started me on the path of becoming a filmmaker.
Wow. I love that story. It's like that book Follow Your Parachute, and here you are kind of doing just that. And did you say accounting you started in?
Finance.
Finance. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to go from finance to filmmaking, that's a story, and here you are now, I'm sure, inspiring the next generation of filmmakers. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Mhm.
So Opal, what about you? What drew you to this industry? And I'd love to hear also a little bit about how kind of you first started the March On competition.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a similar path from a other profession. Mine was law, and I moved into festival work in 2012 um, on the side. Still had my day job and started pre-screening for film festivals, Tribeca, Nantucket, Hamptons. That was me kind of starting my first foray into the space, and I started at um, March in Washington in 2014 as a consultant. Initially, it was to help with connecting with film teams and with other industry members, and then I came on in a yearly role in 2015, and that was also when I began full-time work as a festival consultant, festival curator. I worked with a portfolio of festivals from 2016 until 2020 when I started at American Documentary to work on the POV Shorts series, and then was promoted in 21 to work on POV. And just one amendment I wanted to make to my bio. I haven't directed yet. I don't really have any intention of doing so. I've only produced. I just wanted to note that, so we're not making news here. We're
Got it.
yeah,
Sorry about that. Thanks
no
for
worries.
clarifying. But I love both of your stories. I have no doubt that it will inspire others to enter into a path that they thought might not have been possible. I love when people follow their dreams and to see the impact of that. And both of you have done work and been involved in programs that have had a considerable impact on the world. Speaking of which, Christine, your short FANNIE, wow, like what a powerful narrative film that was. For those who haven't seen it, it is a very moving portrayal of civil rights legend Fannie Lou Hamer, and it brought to life by a very stunning performance by Angelou Ellis. It was just so incredible, and for it to be a short, and I can't remember exactly how long it was. I feel like it was only 10 minutes. It went by really fast, and
Mhm.
you did a great job of merging together footage. It was just so powerful. What drew you to tell Fannie's story in this way? And tell us a little bit about that experience, what brought you to the March On Festival.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I was introduced to Fannie Lou Hamer with more specificity by Anjanou Ellis. So we were working together on a movie called The Clark Sisters, and Ingenue had mentioned that she was writing a screenplay about Fannie Lou Hamer, mainly because Ingenue Ellis also is from Mississippi,
Mm,
and she had long regarded Fannie Lou Hamer as her North Star, as somebody who truly inspired her. And the specific story coming out of Mississippi, who better to write it than Ingenue Ellis?
mm,
So she employed me as a co-conspirator to help bring this story to life. So Ingenue had written the full-on feature film, and what we were finding out as we were discussing the story within the industry is not only people within the industry, people within our own community were not familiar with Fannie Lou Hamer's story. And so we couldn't get past go. It was like, well, who is she? And then secondly, it's like, oh, another civil rights story.
mm,
Like nobody wanted to really do one of those. So we thought, what can we do to get people um, invited into the story about Fannie Lou Hamer, but in a short way. So we decided to do a proof of concept film and do like a short monologue of Fannie Lou Hamer's speech at the 1964 Democratic um,
convention.
convention.
Yeah.
Um, and so we're like, okay, let's give it a shot. We actually applied for a grant, and we won a grant for $10,000. So we're like, okay, we have $10,000, and we were able to schedule 1 day of shooting. So in 1 day, with $10,000, we put together that monologue and decided to intercut footage from the actual credentials committee. Um, and what you see there is the power not only of Fannie Lou Hamer's story, but when you connect her story with the power of an Ingenue Ellis, um, you got something really dynamic there. And we had no idea that, see, we only made it as a proof of concept to show people in the industry that this is who Fannie Lou Hamer is, and this is how powerful her story is. Please take a look. Um, but we ended up submitting it to a few festivals here and there. And then suddenly we were starting to win them. And people were getting excited about the short film. And it just went on a path on its own where people were discovering Fannie Lou Hamer's story. And then the timing of our political climate just started to collapse,
Mm.
and the necessity of telling her story became even more clear. So now more than ever, we need to hear Fannie Lou Hamer's voice, and this was our again proof of concept to show what's possible in this storytelling, put in the hands of very capable women.
Yeah. And if there are people who haven't seen it yet, is there a place they can go to watch
It's,
it
yeah,
now?
you can Google Fannie on YouTube, and they'll be able to watch it there.
Yeah. So powerful.
Mhm.
And then I'm curious, you came to the March On Festival, so you were a part of the competition that Opal's runs.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
Well, one of the things that I wasn't prepared for was just how wonderful this festival was in terms of receiving our story, but also embracing it and promoting it. And sometimes, when you're a filmmaker, you just need to be shown a little bit of love to feel like you're on the right path. And that's what Opal and team provided for the Fannie short film. And um, we won a lot of prizes, and I'm so thankful that they were able to see the story, celebrate it, and then provide the platform for a larger audience to see it. And right there in the nation's capital, where where a lot of these political conversations need to happen and need to be elevated, because we are repeating history. And we need to understand that people fought these battles for us. many years ago, but it's time for the next generation of people to understand what the merits of those conversations were, so then we can pick them up again and in a new way articulate the necessity of the needs of our community, particularly, and other communities to come together, because progress in the hands of less aware people just makes us repeat history.
Yeah. Now, Opal, I'm going to turn the conversation to you for a minute. Christine talked about that experience she felt of kind of a little bit of love at the festival to documentary and filmmakers, which, you know, you're not in it for the money. You talked about the budget. You compare that to the budgets of most films these days. And, you know, it's incredible what you're able to produce. Talk a little bit about how you approach creating that and like what you hope to achieve out of the competition.
Yeah, well, first of all, so glad to hear that feedback, Christine. It was a great, like finding a gem in a haystack when we encountered your film last year. So thank you so much for joining us and all that you do. So this work is really important to me because of the mission of the festival. You know, what I'm hoping to do is, you know, a sort of focused component of the festival's overall mission, which is to uplift, you know, underrepresented voices and stories and perspectives. And through the shorts competitions, we're able to do so on a group that, you know, doesn't often have a lot of opportunity extended to them, and that is students and emerging filmmakers. And we define emerging filmmakers as a filmmaker who's made their first film within the past 5 years. So, you know, I'm just always hoping to, and those hopes are always fulfilled, to find a good bunch of, you know, films that are advancing the effort, advancing the mission. We look at films across genre, both narrative and documentary. We've had some really interesting films over the years that have married the two a bit, which is always really exciting to see, folks pushing the bounds of the form. And, you know, we've been doing it when we're able to gather in person, when we're able to gather virtually, when we need to do a bit of both. You know, we've been doing the competitions for going on 11 years now, which is pretty amazing. And, you know, I came on when Robert Rabin and Isa Sara had a vision to, you know, have an initiative that focused on the up and coming artists who we want to, you know, one, be able to highlight what they're doing, but two, introduce them to more seasoned and experienced artists who have a similar mission around civil rights and social justice, and storytelling and touching community and impacting audience. So, you know, every year that is the goal, to really be able to bring artists and filmmakers together who are of a similar mind and can hopefully link arms and advance the mission.
Yeah. And the competition takes place on Saturday morning. And obviously you're getting submissions. We usually get around 150. So, you know, there'll be filmmakers who come to that, but what's the experience like? Anyone, it's open for anyone to attend. Tell people, like, why should they come to that? What's that experience like if they come to the competition portion? What would make it interesting for a person to attend?
Yeah, it's for folks who, you know, have a mind towards discovery when they're wanting to enter the theater, folks who, you know, want to see innovative and fresh takes around the work, and who want to see filmmakers who are finding their voice, you know, finding their approach. We always have a range, particularly in the student side of things. We're open to as young as high school students through, of course, to grad school. So every year we have a range of, you know, years of experience then that filmmakers are bringing to bear. But the work is always just incredibly compelling and insightful. And, I would say if that sounds attractive to you as an audience member, that you should join us that Saturday morning. It is a long time in the theater. We have 4 different programs because we do the shorts, fiction, student fiction, student documentary, and then emerging fiction, emerging documentary. So it's 4 programs. We do 1, 2, and then we take a break, and then do the last 2. So typically folks will join for one program or the other. Sometimes we have those diehards who are in there the whole. Usually it comes out to maybe about 3 hours all told. But it's always a really great experience, and you will see films that, unless you're going to festivals often, you're probably not going to see elsewhere.
So it's a great opportunity for a parent to grab a child who might be interested in film or social justice issues and come down and experience, what does it mean to be a student filmmaker? What are the kinds of quality of films you could do? What does it mean to be an emerging filmmaker? And some of these emerging filmmakers, like you look at Christine's film, that was like a seriously good film. So you're seeing some, getting to see some up and comers, and that's really exciting. And speaking of incredibly good films and up and coming, it's been out for a bit now, but Christine, tell us a little bit about Albany Road. You did that one right after FANNIE, right? It was sort of.
I did. It was released in last November, and Albany Road is I call it Thelma and Louise meets Terms of Endearment meets Fargo. So there are a lot of those elements in the storytelling, but mainly it's a road trip movie about 2 intergenerational women who re-encounter each other on a forced road trip. When flights are grounded, they have to share the last rental car from New York City to Pennsylvania. And the story starts to unravel their complicated friendship. And we start to understand that there's a lot of past pain that has to be addressed, but it's also a romantic comedy. So it features the performances of the great Renee Elise Goldsberry. We know her from being the original Angelica Schuyler in Hamilton, and she plays opposite Lynn Whitfield in her NAACP Image Award nominated performance, which many regard as one of the best performances of Lynn Whitfield's career. So you put all these 2 dynamic women together in a car in a winter storm. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah. It's a very powerful story that covers a whole, gamut of topics, as you said. And I'm curious, what drew you to telling the story?
Well, I've always wanted to see a road film with 2 Black women. Like what could happen if we put 2 women together in a road trip film that we don't often get to see Black folks do. So that was just an idea that popped in my head. Like, what would that look like? And what would that look like if it was in a snowstorm? And then what would that look like if there were complicated issues that had to be revisited between 2 women who start off kind of hating each other?
Yeah.
And then what would happen if they're forced to deal with those hiccups in their past, and they move towards healing and forgiveness, and they had to do it all in the span of 24 hours. Like, what would that look like? So it was just curious questions like that, and I endeavored to tell a story. I dared to try it. It was cold when we shot it. We shot it in Illinois, like in the middle of February. So that was the idea, was to shoot it in some very cold elements and some real snow, and just to see those kinds of textures, not only in terms of aesthetics, but in terms of the internal conflicts that these particular women experience with each other, and put it on screen and seeing what would happen.
Yeah. And do you have like a hope coming out of it? Like sometimes, you talked about FANNIE when you developed FANNIE, you really hoped that people would kind of learn and understand who she was and feel her power. Is there kind of a desire, like you want people to walk away and some takeaway or something that you hope to achieve through the film?
Well, in many ways, where people watched the Fanny short film, um, I remember when I first met Robert Raven, I had a screening of the Fanny short film at the Ford Foundation, and he was so blown away that he kind of just pulled me to the side and he was like, "What must I do to help this story get made?" That's how powerfully people were affected by the storytelling. So, in the same way, um, we've had those same kinds of experiences after screening Albany Road that people certainly would walk away having had a powerful experience. So that was always my goal as a filmmaker when making Albany Road, was that I told a story that was so relevant and impactful that people would have an experience, and for many people it could move them to do some things that they may have put off, and for many other people, this becomes a story that becomes a part of, I would say, the Black canon of classic stories that people may want to revisit every Christmas. So those were my goals when I made Albany Road.
Yeah. So I would encourage people to block Friday, September 19th on your schedule. Even if you've already seen the film, following the film, there'll be a talk back. Christine will be there along with others. And I have no doubt through the conversation in community that you'll walk away with a different perspective and perhaps some learning. So mark the date on your schedule. As we wrap things up, I have one final question that goes to both of you, which is that we are in a moment when truth telling, especially around race and history, and also the arts, is really under attack. And I'm curious how you see film playing a role in preserving our history and speaking truth to power.
Hmm.
I'll start. I think it plays an integral role. I think that's precisely why we're seeing media under attack, right? It's been shown, time and again when we go through these periods, how important the arts are, not just as a space of resistance and resilience and, buoying one's spirit and finding joy and beauty, but as a real space for, alternative narratives, for alternative perspectives, for, information that can be used to combat propaganda and agendas that seek to reinforce the norm and reinforce hegemonic structures that we see just growing out of control right now. And film in particular, you're transported into another world, oftentimes through the work, or you're confronted with a deeper illumination and a deeper understanding of an issue or a topic. A lot of the work that I do in my day job on the POV series is curating films that show an issue from the inside out, right? You're following the experience of a particular individual or individuals whose lives and story arc is demonstrating, the immigration issue or the conservation issue or racism or, right, different topics that we read about in the news and, we'll see spoken about on like chat shows and so forth. But film, fiction, documentary can actually bring you into the lived experience of a fictional character or, a real person who's going through these. And this is why I like to call this work empathy machines, right? Like you can't turn away from the experience of another human. You're inevitably going to be drawn in just from having a human response, right, to that kind of a story and that kind of an expression. So it's integral. All artistic expression, I think, is integral. Film, in particularly, though, I think has this power to really to transport and to transcend, and to, really just bring impact. And that's what we need right now.
Yeah, empathy machine. I really like that. That's one I'll remember. Christine, what about you?
Well, I'm gonna piggyback on that because that's one of the things that Roger Ebert always said, that cinema is a machine that generates empathy, and he believed that movies particularly allowed audience to step in the shoes of others and experience different perspectives, emotions, and lives, which broadens understanding and fosters connection. So the ability to promote empathy through this particular medium is really one of the most important aspects of filmmaking. And so we don't look at it just as entertainment, because I've done that. I've done content where I've directed for purely entertainment value, but the other side of it is the cinema and storytelling is also a powerful tool for our understanding, not only of ourselves and the world around us, but the fostering of empathy brings us closer together, especially in disconnected times such as this. So it's speaking from an artist's point of view, it becomes a tool for subversive messaging that can move people to see themselves differently, but to also impact change, however incremental. So we can see the power of that, like in a Fannie Lou Hamer story, but we could also see the power of that in a story like Albany Road, which on the surface seems like a romantic comedy, but it is also a call to charge for taking control of our own destiny, so to speak. So many ways that storytelling always has been and will be a powerful tool for change.
Great. Well, our 30 minutes has gone by really quickly. I'm going to ask Opal for you to just do one final plug. I know the Filmmaker Competition is still open. And so tell people if you're interested in submitting a film, how they do that and what you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. We are open through the end of this week, and we are looking for films from students and from emerging filmmakers. That is folks who have made their first film within the past 5 years. You can go to Film Freeway and look up the March On Festival, and we'd love to get your short films only. So that's 40 minutes. Well, really, we're a little more looking for like 30, 35 minutes or shorter. We're typically not playing those longer films because it makes for a very long morning. But yeah, your short form work, send it along to us at Film Freeway. We're open through the end of the week.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Christine and Opal, for joining us. I hope that we see everybody at the March On Festival, which is happening September 16th to the 21st, with the theme of March on Health, the right to be well. It will invite us to reimagine health justice through the powerful lens of storytelling. Festival registration is going to open up very shortly. We should have kind of the programming lined out, or at least the initial programming lined out by early July. And to make sure that you get information about that, I encourage you to go to our website at marchonfestival.org and sign up for the newsletter so that you get all of our programming. I want to thank everybody for being here today. As a reminder, Albany Road will be showing on Friday, September 19th in the evening. Filmmaker Competition with Opal will be on Saturday morning, September 20th. And we have a full week of incredible programs. So just mark that whole week off in your schedules, and we look forward to seeing you in September. Thank so much.
Thank you.
Bye.